What's happening, everybody? Trey here, joined as always by my dad Sean, and today reactions to the classics. We got another album review of Mr. Tom Waits as we are going through his discography in chronological order. For our patron and longtime supporter and big Tom Waits fan, Josh. Josh, as always, appreciate you.
Thank you, Josh.
And today we're up to a bit of a unique record out of anything, honestly, we've done on the channel.
Yeah, I think you can take the word bit out of there, but yeah, exactly.
We got Nighthawks at the Diner, the third record released by Mr. Waits here. Definitely an interesting album, to say the least. I'm looking forward to going through this one track by track. Before we do that, though, y'all, if y'all like this video, be sure to give us a big thumbs up. That helps us out in the old YouTube algorithm. And if you want to maybe see other reviews and whatnot that we do, be sure to hit that big red subscribe button. We upload every single day, song reactions, top 10 lists, live streams, a bunch of fun stuff. Check out our Facebook page down below. We got a lot of great music lovers in that community, as well as our Patreon page if you want us to maybe review a record for you, just like we did for Josh. That would be cool, and you can check that out there. All that to say, Dad, let's get into the quick facts of this before going track by track.
Well, you mentioned it's the third studio album released in October of '75 now. It went to 161 in the U.S., which doesn't sound like much, but it's actually his highest charting album so far, even though it was his debut album especially.
Oh, yeah. Closing Time.
It's up on the channel. Yeah, this one, like, the quick facts are important here because it's really the story behind the album. So you can kind of understand what the album's about. Because it's not going to be, we're going to go through each song, but it's not going to be our usual, here's the lyrics, here's the instrumentation, because this album's just not really like that, because it's not at an actual nightclub or a small venue. It was actually at the recording studio, the Record Plant in LA, recorded on July 30th and 31st of '75. He opens the album by calling the venue Raphael's Silver Cloud Lounge, but it's not that. So what happened was, they invited people in. So they came in, they set up the studio just like a nightclub. They had tables, they had alcohol, they had peanuts on the table. People came dressed up. And Tom did it 4 times, so 2 times each night. So when you listen to this album and think, man, this guy had to do this 4 times.
It's pretty
in basically whatever,
impressive.
like a 28-hour span. It's quite impressive. The title was inspired by Edward Hopper's 1942 painting Nighthawks. The album's working title had been Nighthawk Postcards from Easy Street, but was shortened to Nighthawks at the Diner, which is the opening line to Eggs and Sausage in a Cadillac with Susan Michelson. The cover is also inspired by the painting. Now, Bones Howe was the record producer, and he said how this kind of came about was him and Herb Cohen were talking about what a great live performer Tom was, and they wanted to bring that out. They wanted to bring the jazz out in him more, because it shows up some on that second album, I think. Not a lot on his opening album. They wanted to bring out this. They were sort of looking for venues where they could do a live album, and he said, really, all the venues that had been popular had kind of turned into like junky places. He mentions the Troubadour and a couple others. So then he remembered Barbra Streisand had done a similar thing, and he said, you know what, let's put these tables in here and get it done. But the most important part he had to do was find the musicians.
That's right.
Because in a studio musicians come in, do their thing, they're gone. This is different. They got to be finely tuned studio musicians, because you're recording this for time immemorial, but they also have to be able to not only feed off the live crowd, but ramp that live crowd up.
Give a good performance on top of, giving a good musical performance. You're there to entertain.
And so that becomes quite tricky. So he went out and
we got Michael Melvoin on piano, and he was one of the greatest jazz arrangers ever, according to Howe. We also have Jim Hewhart on bass, Bill Goodwin on the drums, and Pete Chrisley on sax. I might have butchered some of those names. Hey, Tom at the very end shouts them all out. Howe noted as well, it was totally a jazz rhythm section. The opening act was a stripper. It put the room in exactly the right mood. Then Waits came out and sang Emotional Weather Report, and boom, we were off and running. And I think that's a total Waits thing to do, have his opener be a stripper, man.
Yeah, and then when the band was playing, they said on that first song, he turned around and opened up the classifieds of the newspaper and looked at the band while they were playing. So just a weird, strange Tom vibe, which just works, man.
Oh, yeah.
And actually, Jim Heward, who played the upright bass you were talking about on the recording, recalled the experience of preparing for and recording the album. He said, preparing for this thing, we had to memorize all this stuff because Waits had nothing on paper. So ultimately, we spent 4 or 5 days in a rehearsal studio going over this stuff. And that was drudgery. But when we actually got it all prepared and go and record, that was the fastest 2 days of recording I've ever spent in my life. It was so fun. Some of the tunes were not what you'd call jazz tunes, but for the most part, that was like a jazz record. And the important part that Jim says there, Trey, is I think is that Tom put nothing on paper.
Yeah.
Because, to do this album, I always research the lyrics, and I know you do too as well, but when I send you the research, usually the lyrics are broke down, and you do a much better job than I do breaking them down even more. But on this album, it's really just a story. Like, he's just talking to you the great majority of the times. I'll point out when he's not, but for the most part, he's telling you a story.
Yeah.
And I can tell.
Just bouncing from one thing to the next.
He's freewheeling, man. So I don't see how he could have. If he'd have wrote these all out, it would have seemed very forced and fake. It doesn't seem that way. He reminds me more of almost a stand-up comedian.
That's
not
a
trying
great
to be. He is funny
similar.
on things, but just the free flow. So it just starts out, and there's a lot of these tracks. I mean, it's a long album when you look at the track listing, but a lot of it's the intro is separate, and then it flows right into the
song,
the quote song. So it's not really as many tracks as it seems, but it is a long album. So starts out with the intro. He just comes out and starts talking.
Oh yeah, he says an inebriated good night to you all, or something along those lines, which is just a perfect introduction.
The instrumental builds at the start. There's a lot of cheering, so you really think. I mean, if I wouldn't have known it wasn't in a club, I would have been like I've been duped here. But.
And then we go to the emotional weather report, which essentially he's talking about how he is feeling after being broken up with.
Baby. He uses the weather for that, so I thought that was great. It basically establishes a lot of the theme on here. The piano, spoken word.
Yeah, exactly. I like the line with tornado watches issued shortly before noon Sunday for the areas including the western region of my mental health and the northern portion of my ability to deal rationally.
I like the horns here. Big claps at the end. So I thought that just kind of built.
No, it was a good way to start off this album because it really just dropped us right into what we were going to have for the next 60 minutes or whatever.
So if you don't like this, you might as well just kind of move along. I can tell you already.
You definitely.
We're going to go to another intro. In this intro, he starts talking about smoking cigarettes. He starts, and this is way before your time, Trey. Starts talking about the stamps that were on the bottom, I do believe, of the cigarette packs, if I remember right. I mean, I was 4 years old when this thing was recorded, but about saving up the stamps. You could save them up and then trade them in for something. He's talking about the Toro mower. So he's just free-flowing. It takes you right into On a Foggy Night. Most of it, including the intro, paint the picture of him driving, eventually leading to a desolate road. But towards the end, he addresses Rosalind and takes it in a different direction, I think, sort of. More singing, some bass line and acoustic. Pretty good. It takes more of a musical turn on this one.
Yeah, I think it does set up that atmosphere of that fogginess, a little darker type of atmosphere. I thought it was solid.
Good storytelling.
And again, you know, mentioning the stamps, he says, always got to be thinking in terms of that patio furniture, man. He'll just drop lines throughout this,
man,
that are pretty humorous, and even if the subject matter is, you know, serious or instrumentation is serious or whatever, you know, Tom still manages to keep it light throughout here as well. And then you have old Rosalind at the end, who also might be putting vice grips on what we had his mental health being put in vice grips. Now we have vice grips on his personality. So then that takes us to something I think most people enjoy: little eggs and sausage.
Little eggs and sausage. The intro to this, he discusses eating the food, ending in his veal cutlet, getting up off the plate and going after his coffee tray, but the coffee was too strong. Paints a great picture, talks about different eating places, getting the laughs, takes us right into the eggs and sausage, quote, in a Cadillac with Susan Michelson. Paints the picture of being in a diner, and as it unfolds, you realize he can't sleep because the girl left him, so he's just passing the time. Not a bad tune, but I like the visualization of it because I could just picture Tom's in L.A. That's what I'm picturing. He's in downtown L.A. He goes to this all-night diner, you know, especially a 70s vibe, all night diner. He's got the little jukebox in front of you. If you're, he's just having his coffee and he's just watching everything going around because he can't sleep anyway. You might as well go down and people watch. That's kind of how I visualize.
See, yeah, in my notes, I wrote something similar. Just like this really puts you into the late night owls who are going into the diner, the characters that you might see in there, the feelings they might be experiencing at 2 a.m. in this diner, and just setting it all up with the veal going to beat up the coffee. I thought was
so funny,
hilarious as well. And I thought musically the piano was a highlight here.
I did too.
One of the highlights of the record, actually.
Yeah, very much so.
So I enjoyed this one quite a bit to end out this first side of the record.
I did too. You read my mind there. There's 4 sides to this as long. So yeah, it ends out side 1. So side 2 starts off with the intro. This one he's just setting up the song. The song is Better Off Without a Wife. It kind of is what it sounds like. He tells the story of I'm better off without a wife. I like hanging out by myself. He once had a girlfriend, but that's over. Mostly piano through it. Segues to the horn, and then it's kind of the amusing part of this. It ends out with Here Comes the Bride.
Well, no, yeah, and that takes us back to the intro, which I thought was very poignant and quite hilarious. He says, "This is for anybody who's never whistled this song," and then the piano starts playing Here Comes the Bride, and Tom notes, maybe you whistled it, but you lost the sheet music. He hilariously then describes what it's like to kind of be single at times. Yes. He notes going out with himself, going and having to make company. At the end, 2:30 in the morning, he takes advantage of himself, which
dude, this
was
one was
awesome.
So funny, man.
This ended up being one of my favorites as a single guy. I shout out Tom, man. There's too many love songs out there, and sometimes, man, the single guys we need a song.
Yeah, it's the anti-marriage song right here. It's funny, man.
Better off without a wife, man. And there's some advantages to being married, but hey, Tom here is noting you don't have to get up. You can go whenever you want.
Yeah, you can sleep as late as you want.
Come on, man. Come on. So I thought Tom was fantastic on this.
And then this side ends out with an 11.5-minute song, Nighthawk Postcards, in parentheses, from Easy Street. It's an epic journey, as I like to say. Trey describes things as I believe he is walking down the street observing. Got the piano, the horn, some long instrumental runs. What'd you think of this one?
Yeah, I liked it for what it was. Just the story it again was telling and going to that
some observational stuff. Yeah.
Shouts out P.T. Barnum saying that there's a sucker born every minute. Talking about the salesman always trying to sell you something. One of his best lyrics is in this tune. Using parking meters as walking sticks. Yeah, on the inebriated stool with my eyelids propped open at half mast. He also shouts out Chuck Weiss and George Perkins, some jazz greats. Fantastic piano here by Tom and Mike. A journey to be sure, and it almost is like a form of a short story, I thought.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, it really is. That takes us to side 3. We have a short intro to start it, and then it takes us to the song Warm Beer and Cold Women. Not what you think it'd be, right? It's supposed to be cold beer.
Yeah, a little inversion.
And warm women, but he's out bar hopping, but he doesn't fit in because he's not trying to hook up. He's just trying to talk about the girl that he lost, so he doesn't fit in anywhere he goes. He's experiencing a bunch of warm beer.
He's down in the dumps, man.
Exactly, and cold women. He sings this more in the fact that like he holds the notes more. So I thought that was a nice little touch on this one. What do you think of this?
Yeah, definitely the saddest tune up to this point.
For sure,
I think I thought the tenor sax was also pretty great. Kind of the highlight it gets on this tune.
Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, man. I mean, you kind of covered it. I think that he just wants to tell his issues to anybody that will listen.
Yeah, man. Come on, guys. But they're all distracted.
Yeah, they're not trying to get bogged down, man. But Tom's in his feelings, and I can appreciate that.
Well, that's going to take us to another intro. It's only 50 seconds. Some of these intros are 2-3 minutes long because they just blend into the story. This one's only 50 seconds. And then we're going to go to Putnam County. It's 7.5 minutes long. Good story. Talks about the town a little. Then is on to the bar again and everything that happens in it. Then driving home drunk, weaving, and the mundane life issues at home once he gets there.
Yeah, I think that's one of the many talents of Mr. Waits is being able to kind of paint some vivid images and scenery in your mind about just mundane tasks. And
yeah, I was picturing this town of like 50,000 people. This guy's lived there all his life, and it's just kind of like this is what it's come to. He's he's middle-aged, and here we are. This is what it's just come down to every night.
You can kind of think of, just based on some of the lines he's saying in here, that this conjured up in my mind just a small town.
Yeah.
A small town happenings at the bar. He has a line in there about these guys want to get more ass than a toilet seat.
Yeah.
Which I thought
dude, that was hilarious.
Again,
man.
very, very humorous line here. Even whenever Tom's musing on, quote unquote, serious topics here, he throws lines in that to make you know, hey man, don't take this too seriously, type of a deal. And then we're gonna go to the next track, Spare Parts 1.
A nocturnal admission. That's how we end out this side.
Well, because he's talking about kind of the sun's coming up and whatnot.
Right.
And you know what? All the debauchery that happened at the night is getting kind of thrown out into the streets, so to speak.
And he mentions that he's so glad she's gone, but then he mentions, but he wishes she'd come back. So I thought that was just another way of kind of connecting with the everyman. Stuff is not perfect in life, and sometimes songs paint it out to be that way, and that's great because you need that escapism, but this realism of like, I'm glad she's gone. Man, I wish she'd come back. We've all been through that back and forth thing, so I thought a good way to finish off the third side. We're going to start off side 4 with an actual song, not an intro this time, called Nobody. Pretty short lyrically, telling her no one is going to love her the way he could. Kind of a traditional song delivery. No audience interaction in this one.
Yeah, this reminded me a bit of Better Off Without a Wife, just in the sense it's one of the few songs on here that could stand, I think, on its own.
Yeah, I agree.
Not much different instrumentally either, just from what we've heard up to this point. Just a bit more, I guess, by the numbers in the tune. And then now we go to a very awesome story, though, about Mr. Big Joe.
Yeah, we have the intro, of course, first, and then we go with Big Joe, Phantom 309. It was written by Tommy Fail and released as a single by Red Sovine in 1967. It was a minor hit, peaking at number 9 on the country charts. The lyrics are spoken rather than sung. Tom reworks the lyrics a little bit. It's just acoustic. I think he probably reworked the lyrics a little bit, Trey, because like we talk about, he didn't write anything down.
No.
But basically the story is this hitchhiker, who's Tom, he's singing it first person, is picked up by this guy. He's hitchhiking. Big Joe picks him up in the truck, in the semi. They're talking all night long.
Yeah, exchanging stories.
And then Big Joe pulls up to this truck stop and kind of says, it's the end of the line. I got to go on alone. Flips him, a dime or a nickel?
It's a dime, yeah. He gives him a dime.
It says, have a coffee on Big Joe. So Tom walks in this, and I mean, I'm picturing it right now. It's how good the story tells. He walks in this restaurant of this truck stop. You ever been in a restaurant of a truck stop? You can picture that. He walks in, sits down, and gives the guy a dime, and he goes, I'm going to have a coffee on Big Joe. Place becomes silent. Tom looks around. Did I say something wrong? And he goes, no, man. No, we're all familiar with him. Every once in a while, somebody comes in that's been with Big Joe. And he tells this story of 10 years ago. The truck was coming up over a hill, and the school bus
was there,
and he had to swerve to miss the school bus, and it saved the kid's life, but he ended up dying. But every once in a while, somebody gets picked up by Big Joe. I mean, my goodness, what a fantastic thing to throw in here.
And I like it too, because in the restaurant they give Tom the dime back and say,
that's right,
use that to remember Big Joe, and then they give him a coffee on the house, so to speak. So not only did Big Joe give him a dime for a cup of coffee, he really gave him a dime to remember him by, and hey, Tom was able to get a free cup of coffee on the house.
Tom is such a master storyteller that was really on display in this.
This one was awesome, man.
This
and
awesome.
Better Off Without a Wife are my favorite tracks on here. I loved it. Very, very strong way to end the record, because the ending track, so to speak,
Spare Parts 2,
it's really just kind of, he's shouting out the band, kind of closing it out. He notes about the band that they all come from good families, but over the years they just kind of individually developed some ways about them that just aren't right. And I also like his closing lines, which again show his humor and charisma. I think I'm going to plant you now and I'm going to dig you later. Make like a baker truck and haul buns. Make like a hockey player and get the puck out of here.
Yeah, dude, it was great.
I just it again highlighted the fact that you really experience this record almost like you are a member of the audience here. You go to see Tom just perform a one-man show, so to speak. And
yeah, and I mean, my favorite tracks, although it's kind of weird, and I'll get into that when I talk about the overall score, but Nobody and Big Joe and Phantom 309 for me.
Yeah, I would go with Big Joe and Better Off Without a Wife.
And I think and I could have went with that one too, because I think there's very few songs, as we get to our overall score, there's very few songs that are actually songs to me, right? You mentioned it. It's like we're there with Tom, right? And I wished I was there with Tom.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's his definitely best experience live. So for me on an overall score, Trey, I've never done this in the entire time of the channel as far as doing one of these proper album reviews. But I'm not going to rate this record because you said it at the start. It's a very unique thing. It's not meant to spin over and over, pulling a song out. I think it's meant to listen to over and over until you just become part of that. I can take myself back to 1975, and I'm sitting there with Tom and his charisma and his storytelling, and he just draws me in. But it's not like I'm going to put on the headphones and sing these things. Like there's nothing you can sing to, right? So I can't give it a grade except to say, I think you really need to listen to this album, but you need to be prepared. You've listened to what we had to say. It's different. Don't go into it thinking you're going to get his closing time debut or Rain Dogs later on. It's a different kind of thing that fits Tom Waits so well. What do you think?
Well, I highlight a lot of what you are saying here, Dad. I think if you listen to this and you're not a fan, first 10 minutes or so, you aren't going to be changed by it. If you're new to Tom Waits, I would definitely not start with this record.
A funny story is 2 years ago, we listened to this album one time, and I'm like, dude, I hate this. What the heck is this? Now that I understand Tom, I really, really like it. But you're right.
Yeah, I definitely start with like closing time. Go at the start. You get a little accustomed to it. I would, I'm not going to give a rating either. I would give a recommendation.
I was going to say that's what I'm going to put. You're going to see the score down there. Recommendation. Go listen to it.
Go test it out. If you like it, great. If you don't, that's cool too. There's definitely plenty of other stuff in Tom's catalog for you to check out, I think, and like and enjoy. Very unique in the scope of just showing what music can be, I think. And, I did really dig it at the end. Once you kind of get in the vibe of it, I was like, this is cool, man. This is really neat. Almost was like a stand-up, like you said, at certain times. So really, really cool. Thank you to Josh for suggesting this one to us, and I am looking forward to continuing to go through Mr. Waits' catalog.
Yeah, I mean, what's going to be next after this?
Yeah, that's true, man. That's true. And let us know what you think of it, y'all, down in the comments section below. As always, Dad, appreciate the research. And until next time, y'all, thanks for watching. Happy listening, and we will see ya.